This is Rudy Giuliani with another episode of Rudy's Common Sense. This week, the episode is a bit late because I was on the West Coast all of this week and rushed home last night on the red eye so that I could be at the funeral this morning, which I thought was devastating to my city. Officer Jason Rivera and Officer Wilbert Mora were both murdered, attempting to save a woman from domestic violence. I've been to way too many police funerals or firefighter funerals or similar funerals of FBI, DEA all my life. Of course, September 11 was extraordinary. And all of them are tragic. And all of them are also noble because they illustrate the great principle of Christianity, but really of humanity, that man has no greater love than to lay down his life for his fellow man. And before I discuss anything else, I want to discuss one thing and make it clear why I get so upset when I hear our president, his Democrat lackeys, and the Soros crew, and the Black Lives Matter communists and police killers, and the Antifa communists and police killers talk about us as a racist nation or as the police being systemically racist. 3 police officers responded to this call from a mother whose son was a person with a very long record of violence and was doing great damage in the home. She called for help. The police officers who responded didn't respond based on race, religion, ethnicity, gender, or any other of the categories, identities into which those who would like to make us socialist and communist, namely many of the Bidenisters, now try to divide us constantly. That's all they talk about. No. Those police officers rushed there not asking those questions because those police officers are Americans. They rushed there to save human beings. Didn't matter their religion, their race, their ethnicity, their gender differences. Didn't matter. Just like it didn't matter on September 11 when I lost so many of my people. They didn't go rushing into that building saying, oh, they're all whites in that building. That's it. Or I'm going to go to help this lady because she's a white lady. But I'm not going to go if she's a black lady. I'll go if she's a Hispanic lady, or I'll go if she's a black lady, but not if she's a white lady, or if it's a transgender person, I'm not going to go save them. Or I don't know any cop who does that. I don't know any firefighter who does that. Because they're Americans. Who divides us like that? People who don't understand what it means to be Americans. Enough said about that. I was in Los Angeles for several days, 4 days, and I was struck because I was there and also doing my radio show every day, keeping in touch with New York and other cities that we're in, St. Louis, at the similarities in terms of crime. And then I saw an article in one of the Los Angeles newspapers that talked about how crime had become a big issue in Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills residents arming themselves with guns. Beverly Hills residents arming themselves with guns in wake of violence. Now, I don't know if you've been to Beverly Hills. Many have been on that bus that takes you through Beverly Hills. I don't know if you now need armed escort on that bus. And you say to yourself, well, maybe we shouldn't worry as much about Beverly Hills because they're rich. Oh, please. We also don't ask when we rush in to save someone's life if they're rich or poor, do we? Well, Beverly Hills does have a crime problem. Is it as great as the poorer parts of Los Angeles? No, not nearly. But does it illustrate that crime has permeated to such an extent that we have a systemic major problem in the county of Los Angeles? This woman who is quoted, her name is Debbie Mizrahi of Beverly Hills, who I assume is very left. I've always, let's say left. I shouldn't assume that. I can assume left from this comment. I've always been anti-gun, but I am right now in the process of getting myself shooting lessons because I now understand that there may be a need for me to know how to defend myself and my family. We're living in fear. So just take a look at this for a moment. See how tranquil it is. Did a short introduction from there. And then we'll be right back. As you can see, we're right on the foothills of Beverly Hills, right outside the entrance to it. And shockingly, this has become an area where there's a crime epidemic. There's been a large increase in the number of house break-ins, violent crimes. Not quite obviously what it is in the rest of Los Angeles, but when it starts hitting Beverly Hills, you get an idea that crime has now permeated almost the entire county. Things here in Los Angeles have gotten very, very, very bad since George Gascon became district attorney, and there's been an attempt to recall him. The first attempt failed. There's another attempt that is ongoing because murder has gone up by frightening percentages last year since he became district attorney, and now we begin 2022, and already there's a very large increase in violent crime and in murder. And it's affected Beverly Hills. But I point this out because this is a place in which you would not expect crime. The real crime, obviously, is taking place in the poorer parts of the city, and there it's close to out of control. And we'll discuss with you the statistics and just what it means. But what it means is Los Angeles is part of a nationwide crime epidemic, pandemic, and it's occurring in places largely that have George Gascon type district attorneys bought and paid for by George Soros. He was district attorney for a short while in San Francisco. His record there was so bad that nobody from San Francisco endorsed him, and no one endorsed him for district attorney here. He became district attorney, and immediately crime increased dramatically. It continues to increase. Now it's reaching out throughout the entire county, including here in, I guess we call it sacred Beverly Hills. It shouldn't be sacred, obviously it shouldn't. And the only reason to emphasize it is to show how it's permeated the county. It's also permeating the country. And here's the credentials. A Democrat mayor and a George Soros bought and paid for district attorney. Crime rates up in 12 to 16 cities, a record last year for murder, and it looks like it's getting worse this year. Something has to be done about this quickly. How much equity do you have in your home? 50,000, 100,000, more? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners that the more equity you have, the greater the chance foreign and domestic criminals will come after you. Title theft is one of the fastest growing crimes. Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection, is alerting homeowners they could already be a victim and not know it. Here's how it goes down. First, cyber thieves search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. Next, they pull your home's title that's online. They forge your signature stating you sold your home, and they take out loans using your equity. You're not covered by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Protect your most valuable asset. Register your address now to see if you're already a victim and receive a complete title history of your home. A $100 value free. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. That's HomeTitleLock.com. I do think the change there in Beverly Hills does come about from the change in the rest of the county, but it comes about from something that the censorship in America doesn't allow us to discuss, and that is the extraordinary number of riots in 2020 conducted by Democrat organizations in which police officers were killed, people were killed, and thousands were injured, and billions of dollars in damage was done. Maybe the greatest of any group of riots. Now, we're not allowed to discuss those because you have to remember the two groups that carried out those riots were the cop-killing Black Lives Matter. And if you question me about it being a cop-killing organization, look who organized it. They were cop killers. Look who runs it, communists who hate America. Look what their goals are: to destroy America and replace us with a state-dominated communist economy, taking property from you to do reparations, taking a child away at an early stage, doing away with the nuclear family, destroying God. That's who Black Lives Matter is, not the Hollywood version of Black Lives Matter. The symbol, the statement is fine or not fine. Black Lives, however you look at it. The organization is despicable. It's a cop-killing organization. And so is Antifa. But the most important thing is that it's supported by the same person who's the major supporter of the Democrat Party. In fact, it's almost done out of the same office. So why can't I conclude that there's some kind of a affinity between them? That is George Soros, biggest contributor to Black Lives Matter, biggest contributor to Antifa, biggest contributor to the Democratic Party and the Bidenistas, and biggest contributor, it turns out, to district attorneys all over the country who over 2020 let free all the people who did the violent rioting. Whew. Quite a Democratic combination, isn't it? Well, back in California, the Black Lives Matter protest last year convinced Mizrahi and many others. One of their neighbors' homes was firebombed with a Molotov cocktail. That was according to CNN, I don't know if you remember, that was the peaceful protests. I think a CNN reporter was on talking about a peaceful protest, and several buildings in the back were burning. In Beverly Hills area, there's now an 80% increase in the number of requests for gun permits. And then, of course, a really shocking event occurred in December at the conclusion of last year, and that is the Black philanthropist Jacqueline Avant was killed in her home with a security guard. There's a private security guard on a duty, and she was killed around 2:30 a.m. on December 1st. There have also been other break-ins. There have also been other break-ins and crimes within the hallowed confines of Beverly Hills, and similar kinds of communities, that where wealthy, anywhere from very well-to-do to superbly wealthy, tremendously wealthy people live, which shows that it's permeated beyond just it's now endemic as part of the city. Well, the ironic thing is that as this killer was killing Ms. Avant, the district attorney in Los Angeles County, whose name is George Gascon, if you haven't heard of him, well, he was distributing a fundraising letter seeking to overturn a law that would have kept her alleged killer from going to prison for that crime. It would eliminate additional prison time for using a gun during a crime. And then you go on to read about Beverly Hills, and they blame almost all of this on Gascon, who has basically told criminals it's okay to commit crimes. For example, if you steal 900 or less, you're not going to go to jail. So steal 900 or less 10 times a day. People believe that has a lot to do with the smash and grabs that occurred. And the homicide increase has been extraordinary in Los Angeles from the time Gascon came on. 50% increase in homicide. 50% more people getting murdered under the George Soros paid for, sponsored DA who lets criminals go free. We'll go back to California in a moment. But first, let's look at New York and the similarities in my hometown while I'm sitting there in Los Angeles. A new district attorney comes in Manhattan named Alvin Bragg, running on a program that seemed stupid. Basically, the same thing as Gascon. The option should always be for non-prison, non-jail. Cash bail is very much despised and hated. Of course, New York had already accomplished that through the stupidity of Andrew Cuomo that led to a tremendous number of our crimes. And he won. Now, he won really only for one reason, as many of these did, and that's the Soros $1 million that was put in so that he could beat significantly better qualified candidates. In Gascon's case, Gascon beat a very, very respected incumbent African-American woman DA because Soros put the money in, because she wouldn't go as far as Gascon would go in destroying the criminal law. So now we have a very interesting situation. We have a new DA in New York. We got a guy who's been there for a year, similar background, same ideas. Let's see how they play out when we come back. Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to MyPillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code Rudy for these great specials. That's MyPillow.com and use the promo code Rudy. Thank you for returning. So it is a comparison that just has to be made because as of January 1st in Manhattan, which is the district attorney's office that was considered for many, many years the preeminent district attorney's office in the United States. You'll remember, I think you'll know some of the names from history. I mean, one ran for president of the United States twice, Tom Dewey, almost won. Frank Hogan was equally as famous, I'd say, and Bob Morgenthau. I mean, those are legendary names in the annals of prosecutors. And the office produced lawyers and judges of unbelievable distinction. And I say that having been the United States attorney in the Southern District of New York, which is its main rival and considers itself, well, I'm of course biased, even better. However, I always knew I was competing with and working with the best district attorney's office in the country. all of a sudden, Bragg gets elected on a platform that, to me, as a professional in law enforcement and even as a defense lawyer, is a joke, a sad, sick joke, which defies every principle I used to reduce crime in New York City by larger numbers than any mayor in the history of New York City ever did. Or I may add, as modestly as I can, greater than any mayor in the history of the United States ever did. No one's come close to the crime reductions that I accomplished in the city where it was considered to be impossible to do it. The greatest crime reductions that ever occurred in the history of New York City. So I do have to credit myself with knowing something about crime reduction. And I look at Bragg and I say, this is intended to get people killed, isn't it? That's what it looks like to me. He comes in and on January 3rd, he rocks New York City with a letter about his own background. Who really gives a damn about his own background one way or the other? What we care about is how good a public official he is. And he's basically going to downgrade every crime. The basic instruction to his office is there are way too many people in jail. Actually, there are very few people. There are about 4,000 or 5,000 people in Rikers Island. It used to hold 18,000, 20,000. But according to them, there are too many people in jail. And the presumption is going to be to keep people out of jail, both pre-trial and then even after they're convicted, by downgrading, first of all, not prosecuting many crimes, downgrading many crimes, and then going back and looking at prior cases and other things that can, even if the person goes away, let's see how fast we can get him out on parole. He also did away with prosecuting many crimes. There's a whole list. Trespass, coming into your house, resisting arrest, fighting with cops, and fare evasion. So basically, it's removing about 12 crimes completely from being prosecuted at all, taking every other crime and downgrading it to non-prosecution, release immediately. If there is a prosecution, very, very minor consequences, or the emphasis is on the least possible time in jail that you can imagine. If a stranger enters your house and walks out with your TV, prosecutor's not going to ask for jail time under these guidelines of the new DA. This was done on January 3rd. He also, of course, is not going to cooperate at all with immigration, even though haven't we recently seen murders by people who are here illegally? And we also, due to the complete corruption and ineptitude of the Biden administration, we've got 300,000 people here just this last year who we really don't know who they are. The biggest COVID spreading exercise of the year, with Joe Biden moving these people into communities who were not told who they are. Some of them may be very good people. Some of them may not have COVID. Many of them do have COVID. And some of them may be very serious criminals. Here's the point. We don't know. The cartels know, because the cartels let them in. One indication of how bad it is the record fentanyl deaths that we have. Fentanyl comes over basically the Mexican border from China. That's a pretty good indication of what's going on. So we have a new mayor also in New York City, and the new mayor ran on a hopeful platform of, I'm going to clean up crime, I'm going to get guns out of the city, but has been very disappointingly silent about Mr. Bragg. The new police commissioner was very, very strong in her pointing out how dangerous this was for police officers. So what have the results been in the short period of time, which we'll go through at the very end and compare them to Los Angeles? Since Adams and Bragg have been in office, and since Bragg's memo basically saying you're not going to get prosecuted for half the crimes and you're going to go to jail for very, very little for the other half of the crimes, the crime is up 40%. That's extraordinary in the first 3 weeks of a tough on crime mayor. It's a record. It's a bad record. It's the biggest increase any mayor's had. It means the city has more crime than de Blasio had. And two categories are up that are very, very indicative of what's going on. Grand larceny, stealing, and grand larceny auto. Grand larceny is up 70. Grand larceny auto is up an extraordinary 160%. So this will tell you something about how you can analyze crime statistics, which is the area of really my expertise since 1981. These are the crimes that Bragg told you to go do. You're not going to go to jail. In addition to those other terrible problems for us in New York, we've also had a young child wounded in a despicable situation. We've had people thrown on the subway. We've had murders, and we've had five cops shot in 3 weeks. 5. 2 dead. Jason Rivera, whose funeral I came back for today, and Wilbert Mora, who died a few days later after donating many of his organs to saving, I believe, about 5 or 6 people. That's the kind of people New York City police officers are. If a very tragic situation can be beautiful in a certain sense, the mass was beautiful. I give great credit to Cardinal Dolan for the beautiful way in which he conducted it. And there were several very, very stirring eulogies, particularly the police commissioner, who has quite a bit of courage. You know me, I never hold back, right? Because it's too important. I already have some of my cops killed. She's doing what the mayor should be doing. Police commissioner's got the guts the mayor seems to lack. Or the police commissioner seems to care about life and truth more than politics, more than the mayor. And until the mayor breaks out of this and really squares up against Bragg and stops him, I'm not going to be mayor. Today, during the service, I've never seen a eulogy except maybe during September 11, where there were 3 standing ovations for our new police commissioner. I think they were trying to encourage her to stand up to the mayor, who's been hiding behind her and not criticizing Bragg. But the most powerful moment or moments were from Dominique Luzuriaga Rivera. Dominique is the widow of Jason Rivera, the love of his life, described, quite beautifully in the stories about him. And she spoke about him, what a brave man he was, how much he wanted to be a police officer to help people. Wow. Does this woman have courage? I will read to you, and we will play what she said. It was stirring, and it led to a level of applause in a church that you rarely hear. Dominique said, "The system continues to fail us. We are not safe anymore, not even the members of the service." She then went on to explain how her husband was, quote, tired of these laws, especially the ones from the new DA, directed at Alvin Bragg.
The system continues to fail us. We are not safe anymore. Not even the members of the service. I know you were tired of these laws, especially the ones from the new DA. I hope he's watching you speak through me right now. I know. I'm sure all of our blue family is tired too. But I promise, we promise, that your death won't be in vain. I love you to the end of time. We'll take the watch from here.
And it is uniformly, or close to uniformly, thought of in law enforcement and in the police department that he is, if not the only cause, a primary cause of this kind of out-of-control violence, including what happened in these 5 shootings of police officers, including that 40% increase, 160% increase. Now, he put out his memo. We get the first 3 weeks. My goodness, we've got a case study in California for this. Last year, among the 20 or 30 DAs who are really not DAs, they're public defenders, so that on both sides of the case, Soros has ensured that there's a public defender. The defense lawyer is the defense lawyer, and the prosecutor is the defense lawyer. In fact, almost all of them, that's their background. Well, last year in Los Angeles, an extraordinary thing happened, and it'll show you how George Soros is destroying our crime system, our system of justice. He's destroying it. He supported a candidate named George Gascon. George Gascon was not unknown. George Gascon had been the district attorney in San Francisco from 2011 to 2019. He left San Francisco, you might say because of his terrible, terrible record. You might say because they had found someone as good as him in terms of letting criminals go free, Chesa Boudin, the son of 2 radical, cop-hating terrorists of the 1970s. I don't say that about him because he's the son, but also he was a translator for Chavez. Now, why you would elect a translator for Chavez as a district attorney can only be explained by the citizens of San Francisco. And they are sure paying the price for it now because they're trying to recall him. But Gascon, before leaving, had amassed a record as the most progressive rogue district attorney in America. He was a bought and paid for Soros DA, of which I said there are about 30 now. So this is just a little indication of his record in numbers. I'll give it to you also in details, but in numbers, he was DA between 2011 and 2019. In the 5 years before he was DA, there had been 757 rapes, 151 per year. In his last 5 years, when his policies of being very, very lenient on rape cases, this is the state that reduced the penalties for pedophilia. The last 5 years of Garcon's incredibly destructive term as DA of San Francisco, the rapes had increased to 1,731. And 1 year was up to 347, but they averaged 300 a year. In other words, they doubled under him. So did other forms of crime. So did businesses leaving San Francisco. So did property crime. He was a horrendous district attorney. Horrendous. And he also had the capacity that not every single one of these Soros plants does. He would go back and take these new policies and try to apply them to prior cases and let people out of jail. So San Francisco was becoming, one of our crime capitals. The city's almost totally destroyed. Los Angeles is getting there, but Los Angeles is a bigger geographic area, and it's got the suburban areas. And Beverly Hills may have people buying guns, but it still looks beautiful, as you see from that brief clip that we have. But, San Francisco's gone. It's dirty. It's unsanitary. It has accomplished permeating the city. And that's the point I started with. That's why I talked to you about Beverly Hills. Not that Beverly Hills should get special attention any more than the Upper East Side in New York. But when it spreads that far, now you have crime taking over the city, defining the city and destroying it. Like Detroit was destroyed for so long. We do have a history of destroying cities, but we've never had insane district attorneys like this, or a single individual as vicious, as sick, as evil as George Soros. Funding 25 to 30 district attorneys to set criminals free so they can kill more people, which is what they're doing. That's a different story. We've done that one before. We're going to do it in much greater detail. That is the 16 cities that last year set a record for murder. Never before that many murders, like in Philadelphia. Most of them, all the major ones, Soros elected, funded at the tune of $1 million, $2 or $3 million, DAs put there to let criminals go free so they'll kill more people. Why does a man spend his money this way? Nobody bothers to ask. Because he's also the biggest supporter of the Democratic Party and Black Lives Matter and Antifa and the DAs. Did you ever wonder why all those rioters were let free? Go look at who the DAs were. Soros put them there, and he funded the organization doing the riots. Why is he doing this? This isn't a normal thing to do. So, Garcon was predicted to be a disaster DA for LA because of the enormous amount of money that was put in. Gascon defeated district attorney named Lacey, an African-American woman who had a creditable record. In fact, I'm not an expert on California criminal justice, but friends of mine are, and they thought she was a good DA. She was also an African-American woman, I guess the first ever elected as an African-American woman. Defeating her had to be really hard in L.A. It cost Soros a lot of money to expedite the destruction of L.A., but he paid for it. And his first-year returns, from his point of view, are fabulous. Crime went up big time last year in L.A. Just like I showed you those short little statistics on San Francisco. We've got a year in now. We've got a year in now on Gascon, and it's a first attempt to recall him. Now a second attempt, which is a much more serious one to recall. Some crimes that are absolutely incredible. A 12% increase in homicide after a year where there was another major increase in homicides. Property crimes up, shootings up to the point of everybody in the city is afraid of getting shot. And there's a palpable, almost a citywide fear of crime, which was there before, but it has become dramatic now under Gascon. Gascon also makes sure to let criminals out by not showing up for probation hearings. Now, this is an interesting one, that the Soros maniacal, I don't even call them district attorneys, whatever they are. That's not an exaggeration. I'm picking two places, and I'm using Los Angeles and explaining Los Angeles because I want to explain to the people of the city of New York, that's what you're looking at with Bragg. You're looking at L.A., and you're headed right there. Unless the governor, who does not seem to have any kind of moral courage, removes him. This is the CompStat system. This is what a CompStat sheet looks like. This is the Los Angeles version of a CompStat sheet. So I got both of them out for the first 3 weeks of the year, just to see how's Bragg doing, Bragg and really how's Adams doing, because this is for the whole city, not just Manhattan. Although, what happens in Manhattan sort of affects the psyche of the entire city. And this is for L.A., which is really, the city is just part of L.A. County. This is about 3.9 million people, L.A., if I recall correctly. And this is about 8.9 million people. So New York, remember, is much larger than any other city in the country. L.A.'s second now, and Chicago's third. Now, let's sum it up and let's see, do the numbers bear out what I'm saying in the first couple of weeks? So these come from the CompStat sheets in the first 3 weeks. You'll get to see them as well. As we always do, as we did with the Biden crime family and their crimes, and we show you the evidence. The election fraud, we show you the evidence. So let's look at New York City under our crime-busting mayor. Our crime-busting mayor comes in. He's got 3 weeks now under his belt. That's a lot, by the way. A lot of people die in 3 weeks, like these two police officers. Rape is up 21.5%. Robbery is up 33.1%. Grand larceny is up 61.5%. Grand larceny auto is up 82.4%. Remember? I mean, these are the ones where Bragg basically is telling you, if you don't hurt anybody with the gun, you don't go to jail. That's up 33%. If you don't hurt anybody and you just steal, you probably get a medal. So that's up 62%. I mean, these are large percentages. This kind of 62 is a lot. Grand larceny auto, I mean, who's going to worry about taking a car, right? We don't put people in jail. So that's up 82%. So, but let's look at overall crime is up 40%. What a way to start as a mayor. That has to be the largest crime increase for the first 3 weeks of a new mayor's term. So his honeymoon is with the press, who all seem to not put any pressure on him to put pressure on Bragg. His honeymoon is not with the criminals. Right now, they think they have his number. He's going to back Bragg. This doesn't change until that changes. Because we see LA now is into the second year of it, right? They had a horrendous first year. We showed you that. How about the second year? How's our guy Gascon doing the second year around? How's the Soros guy doing the second year around? Well, this year homicides are up 37%, basically. Oh, that's a good start. But look at this number. Shots fired are up 66%. Victims, people wounded in LA, 134%. No wonder they don't know where to go in LA. Victims of shootings are up 134%. And what do these two have in common? What do they have in common? Oh, and by the way, total violent crime is up 27% in LA. So, I mean, we could just say this is a Soros report card for two of his main places, New York and LA. I wonder if he keeps these statistics. I wonder if he says, oh, wow, we got a lot of people killed in L.A. First couple of weeks. That's a good start. I wonder why we're having such a big impact on rape. Oh, by the way, L.A. had a big impact on rape, and Gascon had a big impact on rape when he was in San Francisco. It went way up. Remember, we showed you that? Doubled. Rape doubles with these guys. I mean, I could do this for you in 15 other cities. Some worse, by the way. Just about every single one of them, a Democrat. And probably 78% of them, a Soros-purchased DA. So New York, Governor Hochul, Mayor Adams. I love my city. It's the greatest city in the world. It helps to define America. It's headed in the direction of San Francisco and Los Angeles. It doesn't stop by giving speeches and saying you're tough on crime. You have said that, Adams, and they've told you 82% more of them are stealing automobiles. 40% more are committing crimes. So they're giving you their answer. I did it. I reduced crime by more than you could possibly imagine, and more than anyone ever has. The plan for doing it, I've publicly announced, I've written, I've lectured on, and I've taught it to cities all over the world. It's not just my plan alone. It's an amalgamation, a combination of many, many people. James Q. Wilson, George Kelly, Bratton, Maple, Safer, Bernie Kerik, whose use of it in corrections was nothing short of brilliant. 80% reduction in violence in the prisons. And so many more that, the cast of characters that you wouldn't know about who made it all work. This can be done, but it isn't done by allowing violent people to remain on the street in numbers like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. If you do that, if you continue to do that, you have destroyed San Francisco. You've come pretty close to destroying Seattle and Portland. You're on your way to destroying Los Angeles. And you're getting a head start now in New York. Philadelphia's gone. Philadelphia is gone. St. Louis, close to gone. Please, put the good of your citizens, Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams, ahead of your loyalty to Joe Biden, George Soros, and the terribly crooked party that you now belong to. And put the people of New York first. And begin by getting rid of Bragg and any other district attorney who violates the Constitution of New York and the Constitution of the United States with what he's doing. Well, we'll be covering this all year. And we will go into greater detail on Soros's role, because this question still remains: why would a man do this? Why would a man destroy 20 or 30 cities? Why? Why would he fund increased murder in those cities, which is exactly what he's doing? We need answers to that. And we don't have a press that really particularly cares about us, so we're going to have to do it ourselves. Thank you. God bless you. God bless America. And let's say a special prayer, not only for police officers Rivera and Mora and the others who have died because of these reckless actions, but for all those police officers who I shook hands with today, and I didn't know what to say to them other than, I'm worried for you. I worry about you. Please be careful. And still they have to do their job, don't they? Wonderful young men and women. Pray for them. And again, thank God that you're in America. God bless America, and we'll be back in a few days.